Namo Guru Be Namo Bedaya Namo Dharamaya Namo Sangaya Namo Guru Be Namo Bedaya Namo Dharamaya Namo Sangaya Namo Guru Me Namo Bedaya Namo Daya Namo Sangaya Kandela Gönje Dogane Raga Josa Onde Chonzenze Shöye Nyabo Gönje Losancha Sedan Jeba Nede Sheson Dönye Nanga Seonde Bende Jeze Olama Jebe Zongaje Talon Debe Sonai Chenjondo Om 见主邪王当每天那边见当邪王当，
肯巴这些不是
这
这些得让天的
天来有三界别界，有些灭都照。
Semje tamje to tojala no ya da ro san ye ko mo mo je ne ya to ba se ti si de be she sen yan kun ma da she sen je ma se je se da ne sen ba she.
Let us cultivate the highest form of motivation. We call it bodhicitta motivation. That is altruistic aspiration, seeking complete enlightenment for the sake of all other sentient beings. And with that kind of motivation, we should participate in this Lamrim discourse, or discourse on the stages of the path leading to enlightenment by Manjushri Lama Tsongkhapa. Allow me to read about a couple of pages from Lamrim Chemo, the great Lamrim, on the stages of path leading enlightenment, volume number 3 in the English translation, page 192, to give you the blessing of lineage oral transmission, followed by explanation.
Dhamma Shinshe Chawa Vadavu De Mando Barasheva De Shidake De Tsigaran Shime Nijiba Mubaran Shime Vana Dobarashen Tena Pe De Deva Yansho Sheno De Tsigaran Shime Nijiba Mubo Namjira Shingoba Shedava Kede Tsigaran Shime Nijiba Namjira Shime Nijiba Shinane Rangshin mewa ni kaba ni je sherungu na rangshin na jewa jola rangshin na je jayi da je shira doma ni ma yiwa je shin sawa sobe jiro den ngar sa je long dong bo ye wa khala jir she tema de jawa ni dong ye ta gu ye bar Jimber sung kanda domani da da so shi domani da ni domani de da shi ran shi dong yang de da la me se je ran shi je dong be dong ba la de ber sung 我不到的不送，我到了所以的不到巴黎大里边看到，我不能让我有人的心，我把心包的了，我到门前就把它点醒这中的，越到渐渐我不是大把引起，我不那么我年纪我没那些，我能。就我当把年头差不多，但不能我把这先把的多把年纪。看到当完年了，我一头我把先把得到了年先看给将我把先把的多把这没能的本能，这样没多些没有那这没有的经济这的社会行业把它了没有年纪就把现在就觉得些，别的就是少数的没些呢。别的要没这的，看见给你看见给个罗能些就不能，罗没就把地这个罗都个样的到罗罗没都样的人怎么就没见罗没把的罗都说呢？地在罗没把没把接上没把的我把罗那些一把吃完了，那些没得些。绝把那张心灭，多娘的送你毛不的接毛不的毛不的，的接把那对微微中看了因我讲我不让心灭，我你听上，听上一头送那中间那接的那那面接是微微在那面。娘子送那样个过些送把这国家个热了，才能再说。吃菜的呀，当然了，我不是想把路送别人，多么年我不要没了，多么年就打仗了。就一帮没弄，天那么地方里的碰的东西到那，小学生把你怎么了？见面你了，天没写不当。日常来讲，大当当面打我打的，今天他妈全部都接东西。行，送到的定居来，当把的大面包大能没让我送吧，能讲。我的希望大家写过的咱们也能写的不简单些了，写进去什么了？没生意什么了，基本都被其他老板长些这边领导帮我谈这些，都没有让他知道写的。对吧？那些现在些买包用手洗就把地内写的不是清楚，就外写的就把来讲提起来大大那个东的，那就是不怎么着急。先送把手先丢不忙也得大大个就得那么，我把东西早晚那种心就装多别嘛这个把人来得等知道我说给我你听中是吧你？这些面包我到面包都写上人家这那天真到虽然这样那天可能也到我告别呢，面对现在给老过的一些过年把苗的些为些别这把的上报所用所送不些把呢人人都特别注意。这些面包到我来毛多把这去个也得到上报用这些别要买那第一节这这些面包生意这也到不的。学过我你把我觉得人类的微微中间的就不少的结果可能让他没被过一诺给的要多么也的怎么的忙把别外学校那么把他别我属于没家的大那么大没把把他大我可能做也得别去把的把我大没把这个这个我不到家了上把毛的把什么了我看些个多的也我。这个同的你吧，我们怎么了没吧？看了有第一些的大没吧？你前面过完你把没过那一那第一节现在上去就上去就做了一个让些没把到我上去就是做那个让些没到了当把你们引导引导我才没进去吧。怎么当家老板就越现在开呗，这的我们这边就是些东西，那么这边告诉我们些吧，当然些些东把这对，到我娘家特别过这些，别给我帮的，你们弄的这别第一他是别过这住宿， Rajinam Bajaya Vasamanji, Yude Suvi Jung, Chigu, Deta Toba Dena Dani, Sova Semanzibi, Nimbo Yi, Dela, Semanzibi, Tezaya, maybe, Sher. Dete Tobala, Jodete, Nama Sando, and Wakain Jago, Nani, Yanaki, Wajan, Gishun, Zudeva, Sayino. The Gaji Chakshun. 당은 저 힘좀 가와레스세 나 데이자리 나 강제 다다들 네 최다지라 이 동바지 이 동바 코로나데 미에신지 동바 연로이신지 다카니 용거라 강제 어디니 디가야 다 비직바리래야 그래서 디바리 강제 가다야 됐어요 그 러시 동바 동제르데 연로 고야 뭐 마심 셰지 इन छो खसी तेन फाबे न यहाँ में न तकदा यहाँ में छेदा मत जी तक जे ता तो जी तक खदी न यूं तो मारस छेद ती जन गाजा मुए सिंग से आदि केस मुझ को रोसे तदा दे ता खबर जन चिक बारे सा को तो ही दन तो ये से न इन छेद भी दमा में इसे या तो ही दर जिग बार बा ता तो ही मेस लावी न इन तो ही में न देनो रे छेद जी देनो रे सा न इन के 타와 터에 람잔 요 말스 어디서다
Geshe read from the middle of page 192 to 194 to give us the blessing of oral transmission, and now he's starting to give his explanation. Just to recapitulate what we talked about, things, some of the important things last time include that as Madhyamikins contend that things do not exist intrinsically, we may find two kind of critiques, if you will, and one who thinks that if things don't exist intrinsically, then nothing should exist at all, and which means including the emptiness itself. So they think that emptiness of intrinsic existence is non-existent. Okay? And we see that those who subscribe to that standpoint from Madhyamikin's point of view, they have fallen into the extreme of nihilism, right? On the other hand, some critics feel that things exist truly, including emptiness of all things. Emptiness itself, which is the ultimate nature of things, is truly existent. Yeah? And those who subscribe to this standpoint, they have fallen into what we call the extreme of eternalism or permanence, isn't it? To be able to understand what emptiness is, according to the middle way philosophers or Madhyamikins, we must be free of these two extremes, right? Should be free of extreme of nihilism, that nothing exists at all, including the emptiness, or that things do exist truly, things are truly existent, which is the extreme of permanence. So the crux of the matter here is, and how can we be able to contain the middle way, or the emptiness of intrinsic existence that is free of those two extremes, as propounded by Madhyamikins. As Gyeltsen has emphasized this very point over and again over the course of time, that in the beginning we must make sure that we precisely identify what is being negated or refuted. In Tibetan it's called garja, the object of refutation, something we refute, right, or the object of negation. If we miss that precise identification of what is being negated, refuted, and then there is a possibility that either we are going to fall into the extreme of nihilism, or the extreme of eternalism.
그래서 존도리 대대한 존도리 개대랑시 미 예제대랑시면 컨제스고다 랑시 뭐죠나 가르사들 지고 개대랑시 미 예예 제대랑시 메란도스 랑시 메바티 있는 랑시 주바 도도레 랑시 조서나 랑시 메바든 도도레스 다 랑시 주바 마인게 마주보 마인게 오 디파로레 동바도자요 말스다 시지기다나 야면은 랑시 주바 킥나 시지기데 랑시 주바 킥소나 इन रंशी मटो तो गया तब रंशी मटो तो सोन हिद देबा तो गया छाटो रा मुइता पेन शिंगन जो दिते जुसिना पेन खरसा कोनी ngungge रो मेन भबा का सोरि ngungge दि मारि भबे दि भबा तो का खे गया तने से दि यो मारवा तादि तोनी गाजा दि रंशी बेवा दा रंशी तवा yin दि कोनी इन बिगे namji yu ngungge yin za chik sa ne chik दि मेवा रे गोर मगि चि कोनी का मेवा रे या दि 참잔 요마레스 제대로 존도 그래서 개대 러시메이지 제대 러시메도 러시메가 닐 제대 러시메세야디 도선 에네 러시 좁두리스 그러봐 저는 러시니도 초반 줄 세빈 데발이 시들 담마신시 마와 나데 단도 바시바 티신디스 답변에 가슴 세야지 뭐야 담마신스는 가가 되어야 소지와 디시데 게드티디 에네 카가 되셔야지 미디 얘기 카가 되셔야 타고니 에네 카가 되고 시가 차고 되셔라 러시베와 도바시는 때는 빼드 테바양 주아신에서 어떻게 빼동 잡아야는 되게레스 다 러시베지바 세드 티가 러시베와 코라 메바텐소나 에네 빼들라 조구마레스 데네 책 러시마니 고보 남지 랑히 고바셰도 게데 책 러시마니 ngōna rāshī mēwa nī ngōba shēnā nī rāshī mēwa nī kāpa nī jīshī ngōba rāshī jeba njōrlā rāshī jeba jebē chī tōngba mēwa njōrlā shēndu sāwa sōng sō shēdā tā kōnyi kāngshē yā mēndā rāshī chibā yā nē rāshī mā chabā kōnyi kā pāsla dā pōngsum tsaani mēwa dī ēnē zāshī dōs kāngshē sāwa sōng khāsi tā tī ngā rāwa dōs tī sī kdōwa ēnē tōnyi mē rāshī chētā rāshī mēs 러시 메바 코로나 메스 와라
나래
세르이 메 코로나 메는 러기 조르 마레 조르라 어디서 와라 어디다 이게 사와 현 송샤스
So one of the things that we talked about last time, and again Geshe is recapitulating it here, is with regard to that passage quoted from Nagarjuna's refutation of objections in Tibetan called Zhengdo on page 191, those who have the English text here. And so some critics have misinterpreted that very passage and then end up holding a very kind of an interesting standpoint, and which that is things are neither intrinsically existent nor non-intrinsically existent, right? As if there's a something that is, both. And Madhyamika Higgins, as we talked about last time, said there is no such thing, The reason for that is intrinsic existence and non-intrinsic existence are mutually exclusive categories, right? It has to be one or the other. There is nothing happy middle ground in between here, it is not like for example, a vase and a pillar. Vase and pillar are not the same as the intrinsic existence, non-intrinsic existence, right? If we deny the existence of a pillar, that does not include the denial of the existence of the pillars, and vice versa, because those are two different phenomena, and they are not mutually, antithetical to each other. Whereas intrinsic existence and non-intrinsic existence, they are mutually exclusive categories and are antithetical to one another. So because of that, should one assert that things are intrinsically existent, then they cannot assert at the same time that they are non-intrinsically existent. Should one assert that things are non-intrinsically existent, which is another way of saying like empty of intrinsic existence, then they cannot assert that things are intrinsically existent. Because some of the critiques, what we have seen is they assert that emptiness, right? Emptiness, as we refute the intrinsic existence of things, so that emptiness itself is intrinsically existent, right? So nothing could exist intrinsically according to middle way philosopher. Should something exist, even tiny, weeny, whatever bit, well, then that's it. That is as good enough as intrinsic existence. So nothing should exist intrinsically, and there is no middle ground between intrinsic existence and non-intrinsic existence. And so as a part of that whole argumentation, where Madhyamikas are saying that even as we debate with you and we are making this refutation, the words that we use, the syllogisms that we use, are also empty of intrinsic existence. So words that lack intrinsic existence are used. The logic that lacks intrinsic existence is used in order to refute the intrinsic existence. It's not like some words that we are using are intrinsically existent, but then we are trying to refute intrinsic existence on the side. That's not what it is. So the notion that there is nothing in between intrinsic existence and non-intrinsic existence, right? Emptiness means empty of intrinsic existence, which is free of two extremes. That is the precise standpoint that we find stated in Fundamental Wisdom or Mula Madhyamika. Yeah.
that's a here and you was here. Omission here that the guy at Ganga, the Chonga, the no more Jagan, you think you married. Some Badata, Ranji Meshagra. So she had the Tatangan to Dika the Lavin, could hear two Sukavers and Pergamin duty, Hashanta to cover. She had the Tini Cadre, she had not that did with the country. Uba to Tony Democracy at Chihuahua. Tony the Mamotan Dimasiachi, the Pergama Tony Messiah, or Tini Tondajiva, Tony Dematon Tony made over. She said, Tini Tondajiva on the Jerry Carton, the public service to the my Tondajil do years, anything long to get on the cover. Timothy, Hashas had Joe Shungri, that the getting in Drossar, of course, in Songan. Julie Charlie, Gabangin Jayomar, with the Tondajin Tower, or Dita Lunda, the Digit in James.
So the standpoint of Madhyamikans or middle way philosophers is presented in authentic treatises such as Fundamental Wisdom, Mula Madhyamika by Nagarjuna, and commentary to the middle way, Mula Madhyamika Karika by Chandrakirti, and other textbook. And so in ancient India, if we were thinking about who are the debate partners of these Madhyamikan philosophies, more of the sense of Prasangikas. So basically, the Madhyamikans, they are debating with the standpoints of Chittamathrins, Savatantric Madhyamikans, all schools below, who somehow assert there is some kind of either intrinsic reality or truly existent reality. Okay? And Prasangya Madhyamikans are sort of putting them all in some speak on the, on that other side, and then they are making their point. There is nothing that is truly existent or that's intrinsically existent, right? So that's the debate partners, right, in ancient sort of India context. And then there's other critique that we have been trying to deal with in the Lamrim text. That is, we go into the Tibet, where, Hoshang Mahayana, right? Not every Hoshang, as we said, Geshe before my footnote first, but some Hoshangs who came to Tibet in the 8th century, they propounded the view of nothingness. Nothing exists at all. Life is an illusion, and there's nothing exists at all. So that's a nihilistic viewpoint, isn't it? And so again, the Madhyamikans' argument, works equally well with the Hoshang standpoint that nothing exists at all. No, things do exist conventionally. Okay? And so according to Lama Tsongkhapa's, Rinpoche's kind of synthesis of Madhyamikan viewpoint presented in this Lamrim, is that those who assert that there is true existence, and those who assert that nothing exists at all, okay, in some sense it comes to the same thing from Prasangika Madhyamikan point of view, isn't it? If you assert things exist, truly, Prasangika Madhyamikan said nothing exists truly, right? So asserting true existence as just the same as asserting that nothing exists at all, okay? And that's the part of the argumentations that we have been discussing, for a couple of weeks now. Okay. So a lot of the passage, quoted from Nagarjuna's refutation of objections, or the Buddha Palita's, commentary on the fundamental treatise and so forth. So they are using all these different excerpts, to refute both that kind of standpoints, if you will. Those who assert that, there is true existence, or those who assert that nothing exists at all. And because in either case, what happens is those who assert that things do exist truly, there is true existence, then there's no possibility to attain enlightenment or nirvana at all, right? If things do exist truly, then there is no door to enlightenment. Yeah? On the other hand, those who deny the existence of everything, the same possibility stays. Then there is no chance to be enlightened or to find liberation, isn't it? So from that standpoint, we can group them together, right? Whether you say things exist truly or you say things don't exist at all, it's in some ways coming to the same thing from Prasangika Madhyamika's perspective. So if we read very carefully how the argument has been laid out here in this Lamrim Chemo, I think the emphasis is more on refuting the nihilist standpoint, that nothing exists at all, right? That seems to be much more serious than saying, in some sense, that things exist truly, right? Those who assert things exist truly, they at least are saying that something exists, right? Because that's what it is. Yeah, something must exist, I'm telling you, right? But those who deny the existence of everything, right, that seems to be much more serious issue here. And the way argument has been structured here, the debate is more emphasizing, refuting the nihilistic viewpoint. We don't hear often explicitly stating, that we are refuting the true existence of emptiness. Now, as we have talked about this, there are those who assert that everything is like an illusion. Okay, nothing exists at all, right? And then there's another critics of people who say, yeah, everything is illusion except emptiness. Emptiness is truly existent. The rest of the thing is illusion. But either way, from Prasangika Madhyamika's standpoint, it comes to the same thing, because there is no such thing as true existence, right? It's as good as or as bad as saying that things are not existing at all.
jimbar song, kanda tombanyi ta dodi shibe, tombanyi tawa shewa rangshin tong nyamde tawa misdire ta kasha. Tombanyi ba khala njursiya ribata, yang jawa nangji karsa nangji tombanyi tagungi ba jiwa shi, tongi tawa sunjingiri siya suri shedo, odi siksi nangji shi na, o tinja maresi. Tombanyi ba khala njursi, chö jitang kona, chö tabji rangshin meya, ayne tongi rangshin riba yung marwa siya, odi tonda rima yi. Tongi kona yogu marisiya tonda marisiya ni jawa namji tongpa tagung yeba jabe tagung yeba jimba shi siya di tawa di shiwa da rangshi chuban zibe tawa sigrawa tongi ton sunjiya dirwa di kanda tongpa nyewa ta rod meba sungsi di tongsa tongi denpa chuba yin sinyin di ina di siwa da labi ina da ina tabshi chukwala ya ina tongi ta tabshi chuba di be zo chuba risi kisa pech daswa karsa ngal nor meba tiro siya so o di kepse sikwari la so khota choya mewa o di chiwari res ta sot mziwa tawa ta dod mewa sungserwa khesembe tongpa yi tawa kheba rangyi yi tong nyamde tawa sikma risi tongpa yi ta si tongi dendro tawa rangyi yi tongpa denpa sungwa ngobo sungpa yi buta pali pali khanta tongpa yi nam khanta ngobo na rang ngu yi yewa yi no she ngobar shema tsa tongpa yi jeba tenjin jeba jonga di yujen je angu ngobo daba yin je ngobo na ngu yi yewa ma no she ngobo na ngu yi tongpa yi rabde tamba na ngobar shema te dopa nui je khanta tongpa yi la ngobo yi di ngobar shema te ta la ne shen khangi chang ngobar shema te dopa minu te pena chen me do me la chen me di ni shin ji je wa da wo so di buta pal da she a di to da ji wa re da khang tongpa yi se ane tongi yi se de pike tongi de tongpe tawa de ge karsa khorma mes lab ye na ede pike tongi to ya tabhi zan me re do goris o jewal de se ye rong yi tongpa se mes di tawa de da di za ye zhe de ju tongpa ye wa ma yin se se yu ba ma yin se de rong yi tongpa ye wa de ma yin se wo ma di yu ba ma yin se wo ma di tongpa khorma rong yi tu ba ma yin se wo res o di ngia ji she ene buta pal de tisia de karasana ta pike demba zembe yembo de tardu de karikesana ene tele ya tende deme duya tele den ene tongi do rangi chwa zemba khik to wores ta rangi chwa be tongba khona dendo yisena atil ta sarun da re rawa utire si ta ta do ta rob sin ne di yisare
So what Geshe has explained, has to do with how critics have misinterpreted some of the statements made in either the fundamental wisdom treatise or other related texts, and so that's why they end up subscribing to either the nihilistic viewpoint or the eternalistic viewpoint. It's because of their misinterpretations of their thought. That's what is meant. So, for example, you find a statement that things are empty. So they think that, well, that's what it says. So empty means nothing exists at all, right? But that's not the interpretation of that statement. So what it really means is that nothing exists intrinsically. Nothing, literally. If that's the standpoint, then how can we say that emptiness exists intrinsically, right? How can you say that? Once you say that nothing exists intrinsically, it does not leave any space for you or for us to say that, well, emptiness itself exists intrinsically. Okay, so that's the meaning. It's empty. Things are empty means things are empty of intrinsic existence. Right? Things are empty doesn't mean things are nothing at all, right? Don't exist at all. So that's one important standpoint. The other one is, as some claim, that yes, things are empty means that, well, so there is no substance to anything, and so emptiness itself is the only substantial thing. It exists intrinsically or truly, So as we discussed this last time also, and those of you who have a text on page 191, in the middle of the page, we have a quotation from Aryadeva's 400 stanzas on the middle way. I quote, "As there is nothing that is not empty, from what can emptiness arise? As there is nothing to oppose, how can there be a remedy?" So as Geshe explained before and again today, that if the emptiness of things is asserted as intrinsically existent, it would rather be difficult, if not impossible, to find any solution to counteract that kind of a misconception or standpoint. Yeah? And the example we just used in the textbook, those of you who have the text at the bottom of page 192, it is like somebody asked for you money, said, "Can you give me some money?" And you said, "I don't have a money." "Well, give me that." Well, now this is like, there is no communication, right? You said, "I don't have the money." I don't have means I have nothing to give you. It doesn't mean that I don't have is a money, some kind of a currency that I could give it to you. That's what you are, sounded like, So, what can you say to that, right? If somebody says, "Yeah, give me what you don't have." Now, there's nothing we can do about that. So it is similar to that. If somebody thinks that, life is illusion, phenomena are like illusion, but the emptiness itself is truly existent, so then that viewpoint of the misconception is very difficult to be eradicated. So those are the things, as we find explained based upon the large passage quoted from Buddha Palita's commentary on the middle fundamental treatise in the middle of page 192.
God said the Kajik that only get see here, Tada Majin the pay and Mindic Kajik Gara Norman, she Giovanna. Nor me Jebet said, Della Norman do Yam Zimbajo Maji. Nor me but the notice soon, not tea said, nor me by Yeva Jeza Meba. That no one number, Ranshi, you may tell Ranshi made though. She Giovanna, Ranshi made the Yam the song name. And so no more take Jeva, David, take John Halai. One young over the Ranshi made the Ranshi the song. Not joining us. She said, "Pecorn then," and Normie said, "Pecorn how would this?" Pen the major this or a conje. Should have been on he don't buy in, said Ladizana. And that don't buy this, I don't buy in the race, a corner, that do or that not Normie citizen, Normie was quote, take on touch on Dura. That Normie was the taste Lana. That Rangi Tomba Kora Mess like this and that. Nor me at dead to say, so you got only come around, or the Tata Zodwal, or dear love race, or tell the Jibba race. So the call that have you do your marriage. No, so you did the same day, Jana.
So basically, Geshe is sort of explaining what you have read in the last paragraph on page 192, which we had talked about before. And as Madhyamikins contend that things are empty, by that statement, if one understands that things are empty of intrinsic reality, then that's the right understanding. There is no miscommunication. That's what it is, isn't it? By that statement, if one thinks that, well, things are empty, so that means nothing exists at all, then that's the complete wrong understanding of the statement, and there is, so it's very difficult to deal with that wrong understanding of the perception. And to illustrate that point, so the example, as we talked about before, is somebody says, "Can you give me some money?" And you say, "I don't have the money." And if the person understands means, you really have nothing to give, right? Then that's the right understanding. But if the person still insists, well, give me what, give me the no money thing, whatever that is, right? Now, there's a lack of understanding, misunderstanding, and it's the same as somebody thinking that, things are empty, meaning that nothing exists at all, but the emptiness itself is a truly existent or something. So that is a kind of incurable, a wrong view or a misconception.
这说先觉吧呢，让些没到年子说那马不地界问题这边讲下来，你话讲这边咱拿这个是的咱，那拿没是了咱，咱拿没不是了，让些没是让些没把，可是拿没是么话个，这同大的哈个让过去那这个当大的了，这让些没到是了就咱，那让些没是这个可能老话说那讲嘛的是。他让些没到是的，让些没把可能没是了呢，现在那拿没把这些的这个的，我讲。第让些嘛，现在让些都说那讲一孬是，是吧？他让些没，现在他让些把可能，他让些没把这什么开始讲要嘛，这是，让些没把可能没什么呢，很重要的是吧？
So Geshe, let's continue with the same explanation that when we hear the statement that things are empty of intrinsic existence, if we just simply take it what it is and believe in that, then there's no issue here. But if one thinks that things are empty of intrinsic existence, and that intrinsic existence does not exist at all, or that emptiness of intrinsic existence does not exist at all, or exists truly, then we got a problem, issue here. It's just like the person insisting to give me something when you already declared, I don't have anything to give, I don't have money, right? But still person thinks that, give me that. What you just said, I don't have money, give me that one, right? So it's kind of a crazy notion there. So something I left from the previous explanation is usually what we talk about is that we have this grasping at intrinsic reality or truly existent reality. Okay, so that is a grasping or a misconception that exists in our mind. And in order to counteract that, what is antithetical to that grasping is the understanding that things are empty of intrinsic reality or truly existent reality, right? So understanding emptiness of intrinsic reality or emptiness of true existence, that is an antidote to get rid of our wrong grasping of the notion, isn't it? Okay? So which again relates to what we talked about before, that true intrinsic existence and non-intrinsic existence or emptiness of intrinsic existence are mutually exclusive categories, isn't it?
Kedan norme jebe norme de nyam sona gago sheba je ko ja je dan de da chono ta de na yina en ga norme citizen la ko norme ba ngone ko ina yon norme ba ko ko yon chinji lo de do ko was ko o tia gago se wa na yir sha do de chedan chono ta de be chinji lo bre ya se da ne ji do ka che na en rong lu ke she de en to ni ko na de ba ma to ni tan ye de yes. So
the Madhyamikins are telling the critics that what we are claiming or contending is that things are empty of intrinsic reality or existence, which also means that the emptiness of intrinsic existence itself is empty of intrinsic reality, right? And everything exists conventionally, including the emptiness of things. So those are our contentions. Things do exist conventionally, including emptiness, okay? And the things are empty of intrinsic reality, including the emptiness itself. Okay? So those are the contentions of Prasangika Madhyamikan philosophers.
Sixty Tony la Novo Chema Sung Be, Tomba Nigo Maila, Tomba Ni Dawa Zamla, say, Joyaba Yamainos, Tele da Sixeka to any day of Rova. The Tony Lungom Novo Chema Sung Be, that Tony Mesia, Tony over Chema, the Chizilor, Laura Mother, Tony Coron, Zemba Chizilor, Sungayoma, yes, and Gogoma, yes. Tomba Tawa Zamla Yang, and Tony could share the Ray Tomba some daylight on your marriage. What is what that? Kajon careers and Tomba Yukorame, share the he tongue by Tomba Koran may say out of Yam and the Tomba did the end share. What is Lana? John the Jewel is. What is what that?
So we're on top of page 193, and there is a reference to Chandrakirti's clear words commentary on Siksal in Tibetan. And so according to the explanation, when we hear the statement that things are empty or empty of intrinsic reality, yeah, and if we accept that what it is, there's nothing wrong with that. And accepting the existence of emptiness as presented, there is no problem there. However, if we think that by that statement that nothing exists at all, including emptiness, then that is clinging to a wrong notion of so-called emptiness, isn't it? That's the misunderstanding of emptiness and misconception. Or if we cling to the notion that everything else is empty of true existence, but emptiness is truly existent, then we are clinging to, again, another wrong notion, isn't it? And those are the wrong notions we need to eradicate from within our mind. If we simply believe in the fact that things are empty of intrinsic reality, that is, there is no issue there.
저는 뒤발레자 풍기 동이 동의 상주 선반이 참말로 게임에는 대만 시바당 리지트마다 다다 담에 따와다 제다 디지를 투바셔문도 제 송기 어디지도 다 디디를 뒤발리까지 풍기 동이 동의 상주 선반이 참말로 게임에는 대만 시바당 아니 풍보랑이 동바디 에너지 주바 있을라나 엔 상주 선반도 비게 예시 제가 양다바 럽토고 뭐랬어 천진기 현바신 주로 그랬어 뭐 이제 양다바 람도 주고 말했어 다들 이제 처음에 다다 다음에 따와다 디지털바시고 노스든 디지털이나 에데 다음에 따와다 되면도 에데 다다와데 되면도 이가도 이가 매서 샤도인데 어디서 가야서나 다다 다음에 따와서 다다 따와다 다음에 덴버드와 따와 닌가도 그랬어 뭐 다음에 그런도 말와 어디 그래서 다디 치기 그런시네 폐샤지 치기 그런 다시기 시우데잖아 에는 요다간 같이 라데 그래서 그래서 폐샤다 그래서 비심 쇼는 이야기했어 얘는 얘기 타는 게 두고서 얘는 제가 쉬우지 되고
So we are on page 193, right on the top. There is a passage quoted from the verse summary of the perfection of wisdom in 8,000 lines. And the statement reads, a bodhisattva who thinks the aggregates are empty is meditating on signs and lacks faith in the realm of non-production, unquote. So explanation given on that is, in reality, our psychosomatic aggregates, or the sagandhas, are empty of intrinsic reality. Okay? However, if a bodhisattva were to believe that aggregates are intrinsically existent and then engage in their bodhisattva actions, then these bodhisattvas' practices are contaminated by the grasping at intrinsic reality. So then they are lacking the understanding of emptiness, what it is, and even though they are bodhisattvas, but they believe that aggregates do exist intrinsically, and then they are engaging in bodhisattva actions with that notion of emptiness, which is the incorrect notion of emptiness. Yeah. So in other words, the bodhisattvas, as they engage in their deeds, they should do that with understanding that nothing exists intrinsically or everything is empty of intrinsic reality. And then next we have citation from Nagarjuna's precious garland that reads, therefore the great sage refuted views of self and selflessness, unquote. Okay? And so if we take it literally as it is, that's why often the problems come up, all those debates, because then it sounds like that not only do we refute, the existence of a self, but we're also refuting selflessness, isn't it? That's what literally it sounds like, okay? But that's not what it is. And as Geshe explained, that statement from Precious Garland, what it means is that the great sage, meaning Buddha, has refuted the views of self, meaning grasping at the intrinsic self of a person and intrinsic self of phenomena. Right? Those views are refuted or rejected or challenged, if you will. And selflessness in this context means that Buddha also claims that selflessness itself is not intrinsically existent, and that kind of a view of selflessness or emptiness is also equally refuted. So that is the proper understanding of these statements. But if you look in the words themselves, right, it's not obvious with that. So that's why, often the critics, they take things too literally, as it is stated there, and then they end up holding extreme standpoints. We're still on page 193. We have citations from different sources. As you can see, there's a reference to the Heart Sutra, and then there is also reference to the verse summary of the perfection of wisdom in 8,000 lines. And then there's a commentary on the middle way by Chandrakirti and so forth. And the bottom line is this, as Geshe has explained, that there are certain statements we find in the sutras. Sutras are the words of the Buddha, or accepted as, my footnote, by the way, he didn't say that. Or the shastras, or the commentary treatises on the sutras, right? Certain statements, if we take them literally, then we are going to get up on a wrong track, and we will miss the whole intended meaning of those statements. So we really need to have accurate interpretations of the commentary to understand those statements. Otherwise, we'll find a lot of contradictions, right, among the statements made by the Buddha in that sutra and then this one. And for example, in the Heart Sutra, there are statements like "know this, know that," right? If "no" is taken to mean nothing exists at all, well, we got a problem, right? Don't we? Right? Because things do exist, So how do we address that paradoxes? Things do exist, but at the same time, Heart Sutra claims like there's no this, there's no that, and there's no that. So issue come up. In the same way, if we take the statement such as things are empty, meaning that nothing exists at all, then that certainly contradicts with other statements where we say that realizing emptiness, right, is the pathway or the gateway to enlightenment. If nothing exists at all, well, emptiness can't exist at all. So how can something that doesn't exist at all can be a pathway to the enlightenment or nirvana, right? That makes no sense at all, So how different statements, they don't, make sense here. So we have to be very careful with the interpretations of certain statements in sutras and shastras, and don't take them at the face value, don't take them literally, as kind of a worded. They need proper interpretation.
어디 제가 다다데 제 가서 도디바다 에네 오만주바니까리 가서리야 이니 돈이도 올라디야 타바토지 람탐바이 에네 헤라포지 주바 쇼인스르다 저주선바야 람고면 내가 소리 비게 파르시오 조지베 조대 초 약효대 어디리 돈이도 올라디스 오만주바 가서라 이 돈이 나게 또 땅바도 내저바 타바토지 송샤인자다 거기 돈이 데 메스 라위나 에네 롱어라 또네 에네 타바토지 지바샤로 그러 어디서 왔다.
And so in the middle of page 193, we make reference to the statements from Perfection of Wisdom in 8,000 lines and commentary on the middle way. What is the actual meaning of those statements is this, that emptiness of intrinsic reality is the understanding or contention here. By realizing that, we will be able to be free of cyclic existence, samsara, and we can find nirvana and liberation, right? And that is the pathway. So in the context of bodhisattva perfections or practices, the perfection of wisdom is rated as the supreme perfection, right? And that must exist, So what is rated as the supreme perfection? If it's a non-existent thing, then how could we cultivate that as a path to be free? That is not making any sense here. So in the Chandrakirti's commentary on the middle way states that the yogi or meditators, as we reflect on the emptiness of self of a person and emptiness of self of a phenomena, those reflections or the understandings, the realizations can help us to become free from suffering, free from samsara, right, and find our liberation.
저는 그 바탕에 싸워는 신도도 말을 봐인라. 대도 무슨 게 거니 뒤순저는 신매 봐. 다음에 봤더니 헤라 냐지나 뒤인지는 수인제는 대코나니 이게 따와가 왔니 민대 현디 영 켈린 곳이 다들 런심에 봐도 메스 라위나 근데 다다 런심에 봤더니 다다 타버터지 로이세게 다다 갖고 뭔지야 뒤유인지 너도 가도 거라 뒤 가서나 근데 거다다 해도 뭐라 어디 갑자기 민대 현디를 되는 뒤기하고 됐을 거라 영어답에 따와서야 되기로 매번 까도도 그 따와 매드시고 말이다 거기 라시메 거라 매스랍되잖아 근데 라시메가 매나 됐다 볼로 유드 매사로 어디서
So at the bottom of page 193 it's stated as explained that the root of all our problems and suffering in samsara is nothing else but the ignorance of grasping at self, or grasping at intrinsic self. And the antidote to counteract and uproot that ignorance from within our mind is the realization of selflessness or emptiness, isn't it? Yeah. So it is our supposition that self does not exist truly or intrinsically, and understanding or realizing that emptiness of the self is the way to go. It can free us from our grasping, right? Those are the suppositions or the contentions, But if we go with the notion that nothing exists at all, including emptiness, then what we just said, right, what has been stated in many texts makes no sense at all, So if emptiness of true existence is non-existent, let's say, then it is like we are cultivating something that doesn't exist at all, and still we believe is going to take us to nirvana and liberation and like that. So it is, as ridiculous as meditating on the horn of the rabbit's head, which doesn't exist, right? Don't show me some fake pictures, that's my footnote of that. And so, just kind of meditating on something that the rabbits don't have, the horns we call, and we claim that that's going to lead us to nirvana and all the hoo, right? That's just a crazy thought. So if you claim that emptiness of intrinsic reality is non-existent, it's as crazy as that notion, right? Saying that, I can go with the rabbit's head and become Buddha, makes no sense.
시급에서 해베 야벤데와라 착과서 용서와 냥엔데와도 유인 러시메와 따올 마도베 쉬어가게 되다 샤고용서 요요와 마이노 디이체 러시메베 생이진기 다음에는 되디 희고니버메 조디 냥엔데베 통제도 좋아서 디치부코는 다음에베 고이노 게데 대야 동반이도 세면메와 다이노스 다들 시작은 되వాలి 희고니버메 되마스도자 에네 대송야세 러시메베도 타바 희고 해외고 해와 냥데서 따탈바선다 탐지쇼 토발라 에네 고딕베 러시메베 지고레스 러시메베 또 로디 지고레스 송시도 갔어 다들 송에서 뭐 딩이시 러시메베 생이제 다음에 희고 해외고 이범메와 조데스 냥엘은 데와 드베 인데 가서 종결은 주고 셔와 니치부 코난 다음에 고이노 셰다 베타바타죠 카르토나 랑히 마도 동게 로티 인스 다메바 티 송샤 니 저는 랑히 메바데 메스 라비나
No.
아니 코 제그마르발
Not it.
어디서 왔다
So at the bottom of page 193 and top of 194, you find it stated, this is a passage quoted from Chandrakirti's commentary on Aryadeva's 400 stanzas. Because in the 400 stanzas, Aryadeva claimed, I quote, there is no second door to peace, meaning that realizing emptiness is the door to enter nirvana. There is no second door, there is no option B, to sign up for. This is it, there's no other door to enter into nirvana. And so if we claim that emptiness of intrinsic reality does not exist at all, then there's no door, literally, at all, to nirvana, to enter, right? No.
어디 그래서 이제 개대양 동반이 처음에 뭐에서 송요 매기 됐다나 다음에 따와건도 또 인데 쉬어말로 다음에 버리지 뭐보다 샤워말로 세워 이제는 가지고 돈이냐 세만 매바 가래 뒤시 다음에 봐 안되니 희외고 이바모 코나이노스 다디 데리야 먼저 지다 남자 고숨세 하시고로 남자 고숨나 다음에 와서 초지기로 그래서 인거도 왜 동바다 다음에 이제 동아데 니도 많이 다음에 좀 해야 그래서 다음에도 야보 또서나 인 쇼강에 생지 그때 연구 말이 곧 그래서 생이 매우 생지 치와타지 노도 그랬어 제가 고소는 주려데 다음에 왔더니 다음에 됐다 히팅만 들어와. 뒤에는 쉬고 니바면 라레스. 어디서 오자?
So on page 194, looks like an issue has been raised. Once Aryadeva's claim, or others too, that emptiness is the door to enter nirvana. There's no other second door, right? Then they said, what about 3 doors to liberation? Like if there's only one door, you said there are 3 doors. Now what about that? So reference to emptiness, signlessness, and wishlessness. I know, wonderful in our English translation. I don't know how much sense it's giving. Sorry, even as a translator, I don't know what to do with this. So in the emptiness is tameba, signlessness is semameba. Wishlessness is memba in Tibetan, right? Those who are following Tibetan words, I know some of you are. So what about that? Somewhere you claim 3 doors to liberation, and somewhere you said there's only one door, right? What's that? So according to the explanation of these 3 doors we talk about, emptiness, is the most important one, right? So if you understand what emptiness is, it takes care of these 2 other doors, right? So it's not, like then we have to go through the second door called signlessness and the third door called the wishlessness. No, there's nothing yet, right? We understand emptiness, and that's the only door we need to enter nirvana.
어디 뒤이지 정주 소래 런심에 동了동반에 인다 체매지 제번 줄 체마던 로바 유에 제베 제디 문 예버 대번 조리 셰셰도 시 나바타베 고숨 셰바다 랑신 동바다 따위 따와 냐지 타베 고셰베 세 예붕 여방네 롱더 리베세 티니 테바 테베 고 티니 타베 고 드롭소 세미라 어디레 셰다 다다다 다음에 또 관나 있어야 되게 디너지도 소미여이나 디 당매서야디 지동자 동바이 참마메와세르도 최진 가가셔르 이도 당매서야 강가 차대요 지원해요 어디 그거 두고라 그거 만두 요마라 어셔 딩겨빠네 인데 드롭샤스 타베 고냐지 드롭샤스 라지나바 제바 잠게 유티 순종야 지거데 때던 또바데는 다니즈 세만제비 니보 인게 텔레 세만제비 제자야 메비 쉐로사 제다 ene toni do lo de ya seman ze be dodo chetsama yo maris dodo nyembo re gora la re but that toni mes la vi na dodo re gora la re odi
so we are on page 194 where there's a mention of three doors to liberation: emptiness, signlessness, and wishlessness. Although the three things are mentioned, emptiness is it kind of subsumes the other two, if you will. The reason for that is, emptiness is same for every phenomenon. There are no different types of emptiness. Emptiness is just one for all. So when we talk about signlessness and wishlessness, it's just basically we are making reference to a different basis upon which emptiness is established. But what it is, emptiness is just one, and so from that standpoint, realizing emptiness is the door to liberation. There's no second door, still stands true, because there are no different types of emptiness.
Dede tobal jong de ten sangdo de ngen do khan jang go na ne jana ke bo ha shang ki shung zubar shung zung de ba sha yin wo se de da dede was in the be loi chewa de sheba de she ne in de dong da de jong de dai na in the jana ke ha shang da jin ye li me che ba se o di da de shung zu a 그런 네 번째 세와 쉬워 그랬어. 어디서 다 전화야 다 들어와.
네.
얘네 뭐 대샤다 알리 어제 전 지지 송제네 대샤가 인데.
들어와. 한 슈울 그냥 파트너 들어와 그냥.
예, 슈다.
So at the end of this chapter, we will, page 194, it is stated as explained that if we fail to understand emptiness for what it is, and then we claim that all kinds of thought processes, good or bad, must be negated or stopped, then that kind of a notion or standpoint, it goes along with what Hoshak Mahayana has propounded, right? Nothing exists at all. Don't think good, don't think bad, because at the end of the day, it comes to the same thing. Okay? So it's very important for us to understand emptiness, what it is. And if we fail to do that, then we might get into wrong notions of emptiness, and then we might end up colluding with or subordinating or promoting Hoshang Mahayana's and other extreme viewpoints. So with that, we will stop there today, and we will welcome your questions and observations. And so next Sunday, now we are going to go back to volume 2, right? Sometimes get it all wrong, We'll stop this section here, right? Yeah.
Thank you for the teaching. In today's text, they mentioned the Heart Sutra as kind of articulating the viewpoint accurately. My question was, some traditions, for example, the Pali tradition does not recognize the Heart Sutra. So would the Prasangika Madhyamikans contend that the Pali tradition does not have an accurate understanding of emptiness.
Okay, so your question is that Heart Sutra is accepted by. No, let me say whether I understood you or not, right?
Yeah.
Not correct me, right? So that I don't report the wrong thing to Geshe. So what you said is there's a reference to Heart Sutra statements here, right? And Heart Sutra is accepted in the Pali tradition as well. And so your question is it the case that Prasangikas are refuting the Pali understanding of Heart Sutra? Is that what you said? No.
No, I said the Pali tradition does not recognize the Heart Sutra.
Oh, Palis don't accept it.
Correct.
Oh, Palis don't accept Heart Sutra. Okay. Is that what you said, right?
Correct. It came from the.
Okay. So the question is, Palis don't accept the Heart Sutra, so?
Are the Prasangic Madhyamikans arguing that the Pali tradition?
Oh, are they arguing with the Pali tradition then? Yes. Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. Now I got it. Yeah, thank you. Again, this is what I thought. Under the Karashugure, Sheram Yingbolia, this long stance on again. So the Quran, this is the name, the Sheram Yingbo of Chashabina, and the Pali. Ki chuju zimba yor wagen shiram nyingba kelling mi do sa kan ba de chidu kan ya ta 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 de shiram nyingbu gi tang ga mi me na ma ka lo wagen di ka sa mo ma tinju bu lu ro wagen ten yu ge ye na ane o ma tinju bu gi pi gi kar so gora ta ta dir wagen do ba ga ko sa ro ba di na le ya ta pali chuju zinge zo yor bes ge ba ta wagen pali gi diling mi do so ro ke
Tere, Pali Tata Siada, Tate, Pali Chuji Siada, Tata, Chitong de Pali Gay told Chuju Chikshe, Tata Ligaki, Yibani, those Chongdua. Tata Ligaki, you get the pearl, you get the Tina and Donga Yongso, Chema of Dakanji Kabu Yongso, Tinan Judua. Tata the Pali Gay, you get that talent, Barman, you get the did. Picture them, Timmy Kazang teacher, tell that. Zu David, Doati that Yevashe, in the Momba is a Doa the Mobanima, the Sema said the Parjin is a Midua. Said the Sharon, which is the teacher that he could visit Tiwashukama, his secretary, the Tina Kelling Marwa. But did the young man called Kel Melange? That they should chop down the this is what I think so. Says you should say, Pearl, you are to be shot on the regulars. 다들 현대 연구도 차장도 문득스다다다요. 자빈도 도와지도와 뉴스에는 야셔라 정보자 그 전술로서야도. 이제 셔라 정보에도. 이 코드 셔라 정보에 대해도 지금 메시아 되세요. 그죠? 저한테 뭐도 이 코드 캐는 말이. 다들 코드 캐만한테 내가 좀 마시 그러면 디제과도서 요역하래.
이네 다단다 가자 디르바게 단다디 오마 텐조버기 가정 문제 체네 러시 메바텐을 받을 간 디그 총아델야 빨리 추주 요마로 다 샤야마로 빨리 열수서 다 빨리 추주 가정 본적이 하르수들 켈링 문들라로 바게
네 빨리 추주 다 건조 다다 대신에 빨리 건조 다 지듯이 다 기지 가바제나 디제과도 써야지 고톤 도어 바비 다다 가도디 가시고 말
Okay, so I want to make sure that everything is clear up on both ends, you know. So what you said is that Pali tradition followers, they do not accept Heart Sutra, okay? And do the Pali system of thought become a kind of an opponent of Prasangica Madhyamikas like philosophy because they don't accept that. So Geshe-la's response to that is, he kind of contextualized a little bit here, that Buddhism was kind of believed to be taught primarily in two different major languages, Pali and Sanskrit. Okay? And what was taught in the Pali language primarily spread to certain countries and followed primarily like in the countries like Thailand and Burma or now Myanmar or something like that. Whereas things believed to be taught in Sanskrit, it went to other countries, including Tibet. So in Sanskrit traditions, we talk about both sutra discourses and tantric discourses, right? In the Pali tradition, there is no, tantric discourses, if you will. So in the Pali tradition, they can talk about Vinaya, they can talk about Abhidhamma Kosha or the treasure of knowledge or like cosmology or all of that, but they don't talk about perfections, Panjana Paramitas, and they don't talk about valid cognition, Pramana, Vartika, Karika, and all of those things. Okay, so just Geshe want to explain that's part of his response. And so he does not necessarily think that Pali tradition is part of the critiques that Prasangikas are kind of debating and try to make a point or refute it. But where this thing makes sense is that perhaps, as many of the Pali followers do, that they may not accept necessarily the Mahayana teaching as words of Buddha, so in that context, right, because when we talk about Prasangika system, everything else, right, they may not accept that, so that's a different context there. And then Geshe somehow kind of make a reference to, I think, the Zen Buddhism or the Chen Buddhism. There is the notion of, nothingness. Now that is a philosophical standpoint. Perhaps could be related to the philosophical debate that we have, followed. Any other questions? Oh, yeah.
Since the translation of the words signlessness and wishlessness leave the English student with very little understanding,
Right.
can Geshe explain what those
what it is, sure. Tata namda kusum sum warwage. Inji ching na la ya ane chama me ba member se ba de kunyi me ba cha du warwage. Tata di Geshe ching ro na sa warwage chama me ba sana kande jlo ko member me ba sana warwage.
다 되지고 배는 다 최도 찍시나 다 그거를 배는 다 적된들이시나 세마 매버서도 지도 줄고 세마 줄고로 몸바셔야지 제도 드블고 몸바로 다 똥바지셔야지 그건 다다유 다다 뒤성적으로 제가 다 고동들이시나 되세요 적된들 차셔나 딩에만에 demba 좀요 말이지 당부터디 그 세마 매버시고 다 단다코로 덴도 말아 데로요 말아 또 아이는데 똥바지 있어 다디 사이는 이코바 데로 문자요 요 말아 이제 몸바 매버시고 뒤숨
The three doors to liberation, or Namthar Kosam in Tibetan, Tongbani, emptiness, Sema Meba, we translate as signlessness, and Memba Meba is wishlessness or aspirationlessness or something like that. So these three doors of liberation is kind of in some way related to the notion of past, present, and future time. And signlessness, Samameba, is explained in terms of the past or the causes, right? Cause and effect, the cause, what goes precede in the past, right? And wishlessness or the aspirationlessness, Meba is explained in terms of the future of the outcome, And emptiness is explained for what it is in the present now. So now if we use a specific example, this table, right? So if we say that this table, if you look into its past, there was nowhere in the past this table existed intrinsically. If we can trace the causes, whatever, right? That part of emptiness is called signlessness, if you will, right? And this table, as it is now in the present moment, it is empty of intrinsic reality. That is the emptiness. And in the future, this table could not exist intrinsically at all. So that is the wishlessness part of the outcome, So maybe perhaps the better way to translate is the emptiness of the present, of the past. I don't know. Okay, future rather than this, words makes no sense much to us in some sense. Yeah, good. Sure. Yeah.
So this discussion rests really largely on the understanding of what intrinsic means.
That's right.
So could Geshe reiterate what characteristics, factors, aspects would something have to be intrinsic, intrinsically existent?
Ta kan cha tonda yang ni dige sama ge nian ka thu cha shu de wa ge ta tong ba ni islam le rang xin me se de ka la ya ta rang xin du ba se ge zhe zeng guo wa ge che na che kan ro ba rang xin du bu yun na wa ge ta din de shi yun na rang xin yo se guo wa ge de sam lo tang sa de ka wa cha ro rang xin yo se yo ma le lab de go wa yo ma le ye sam che gu de wa ge
제때는 내가 저다 됐어요. 다 내가 다 네, 시도지 나다 땡디세 땡땡도 쳐서 땡디세 게 시고로. 러시 저서 술 마도 봐. 그 랑자 타바도 시고로 봐. 됐어. 다 때문에 다 러시 매버서 저 가래는 유진도 뭐 지금 때는 뭐지. 그 랑자도 다 처음부터 되지. 다 러시 매버서 시고로. 다 그때 술 때문에 그 상황을 되나? 러시 다 거기 내좀 세일 되래. 그걸 뭐 때문에
차다.
차다 어찌가 뭐도 그 앞에 녹도를 다 쳐야죠 말이야. 그래서 폐기에 들어서나 소주마당에 되는 그런 일에서 하죠 말이야. 어디서 저 다다 폐기를 이제 지다고 좀 뭐 해봐 라시 좋아서로 와. 어디 초를 찍어도 그래야 되고.
So that is the crux of the matter, how do we understand intrinsic reality? What does intrinsic mean? Rangshin Duba in this particular case. Intrinsic means something that could exist on its own, without depending upon anything else at all, right? Any causes and conditions, not on its parts, anything. It shouldn't have any parts and parcels, and not depending on conceptual imputation. Okay? If something exists independently in that mode, then we say that is intrinsic reality. Okay? So as we talk about the notion of dependent arising, Tyndall, Pratit Samutpat, right? There are different levels of understanding dependent arising of causes and conditions, dependent arising of parts and parcels, of relativity, and then dependent arising in terms of conceptual imputation, right? So if you could find, hypothetically speaking, that could exist in and of itself without depending on any causes and conditions, without depending on its parts and parcels, it should be partless, and without depending on any conceptual imputation, then that thing, right, we call it intrinsic reality. Yeah, it is on, I think. It is on, yeah.
What will be the cause and effects for the emptiness?
What are the cause and effects of emptiness? Okay, sure. Da Quran tam de sidu kan le tang zo tong ba ni she de go ba ge. An tong ba ni Quran le ya ju da de bu she yo ba so tong ba ni ge ju ka le tong ba ni ge de bu ka le si lo do ge.
Ale ta tong ba ni se no de ran de she sa tong ba ni se de ma she ro ko ju de de na sha de ka yo ma ro ba.
No de.
Se na ten de se ya ko thon da de yo de ho ta ro.
No de. Emptiness, or in Sanskrit we call shunyata, in Pali called sunata, in Tibetan it's called tongpa. The emptiness as a reality is what we call unproduced phenomenon, non-product. That means it has no causes that produces it. It is a permanent reality that is unproduced. But then to understand it, we said we have to use the logic of dependent arising, right? The framework of dependent arising. So the dependent arising, we can talk about causes and conditions and other things. But for the emptiness itself, there is no cause, It is unproduced.
So it's intrinsic.
The emptiness of intrinsic reality, yes.
So slightly related.
Sorry, no. She asked, she said it's intrinsic.
So now are you asking is that the emptiness intrinsic?
Yes.
That tong ba ni de any rang shi do ba so ke.
La.
Then tong ba ni de ta ke du ma che ba na ba ke rang shi do ba so.
Da ye cho ma shi se da de kan wo就是da东北下的对吧？现在的小个，da东西是小个是吧？
No.
现在头发的用个东北的他缺这个内陆上上，可能有出不着啥，地的东北小个是吧？
No.
我这他有点的点点没有点的，看就学他们就过着，东北人那着，我也那着，所以没有有点个点点就过着是吧？
Geshe says, emptiness is not intrinsic. That's why we talk about emptiness of emptiness, right? We talk about 16 emptinesses, right? Different categories, and one of which is emptiness of emptiness. And he understands that this is a really difficult concept for us to kind of mule over and understand that emptiness itself is empty of intrinsic reality. But the thing, emptiness is not produced, but it is dependently existent. See, it is a dependent arising. Okay? So therefore, anything that is dependently arisen or existent is not intrinsically existent, okay? Or does not exist intrinsically. Go ahead.
What does it depend upon?
What does it depend upon? 알에 딱고 동반이 된데이나 가를 된데 어려서 오다게.
대 최제 강하라 동반이 세야 돼. 딱어든 니데 강하 최 강하로 찍이 땡 두고 뭐도 찍어마도 그런 도도도 차요 말마.
No. Well, basically, emptiness is dependent on whatever the base phenomenon is. If you talk about, he didn't use this example, allow me, my third footnote here. If we talk about the emptiness of the table, it is dependent on the table, right? Otherwise, we can't talk about the emptiness of the table. So, yeah. Yeah, could you? Yeah. Any other questions? If not, sure. Go ahead.
Probably related, but maybe out of context.
Sure.
So if I take a physical phenomena
Yes.
or modern science and mathematics,
Mm-hmm.
in principle, even though if you take a single phenomenon, there's a cause and effect.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
Right.
But now we know how to write down a theory
Mhm.
which incorporate all the possible cause and effect productions.
Mm-hmm.
So at a higher level, this look like the theory is just there,
Mm-hmm.
and it could apply universally.
Mm-hmm.
So should I treat this as intrinsic existence or still conventional existence?
I think you lost me on the intrinsic existence, the conventional existence. Do you mean the same thing?
Right, so write down a physical equation.
Like theory of relativity.
Okay, so give me your equation one more time. Yeah.
Right, so write down, say, Einstein's equation,
Right.
relativity.
Right.
In principle, I can explain everything.
Right.
All the phenomena
Right.
depends upon what are the causes.
Yes.
So should I treat the equation as intrinsically existent or is still a conventional existence?
Well, I don't think I will be able to get that to Geshe like EM square equal to whatever because he won't have that. But how do you think that Einstein's equation is intrinsically existent? Because that equation involves so many elements that shows the dependent nature of the equation, right? How could it be intrinsically existent? Right? If there is EM square, there's all dependent thing, right? There is no intrinsic. Otherwise, if it's intrinsically, there shouldn't be EM square, whatever. It should be whatever. I don't know. How can we write an equation with no elements, right? Yeah. Right.
Because it could be universally applied.
Oh, yeah, it could be. Yeah. Emptiness, we think, is a universal reality. Yes, it applies to it.
Or it is intrinsic. That's what she's kind of like.
Okay.
She's wondering if it's universally applied, does that not make it intrinsic because it's universally applied?
Oh, okay. If anything can be applied universally, does it make it interesting? Okay, now I can ask that to him, right? Not the EM square thing, but this go again. The city now in Phuntsok that the also what a new of Shigo again, and new look of the city can let that Mangoja cabin new Shigo again. So that can say near doing Kaya Rovachi, Mangoshi, which are kept in our again, kept it, but then as a tomb in the church, kept there again. Kaba Tagarangi and the Russian to a thing on my west or again. Why? Russian Yabich.
차버스가 되게 러시 뭐좀 되고 다 문제잖아. 러시 좀 차벼야 말아. 코로코로스도 되게 저 헬발에 지로시아 용마로.
Right.
그래서 차버다가 그런 게 러시 뭐좀 되고.
Right. Actually, Geshe feels that when we think in terms of universality of a framework or a principle, whatever it is, that itself tells us that there is a lack of intrinsic reality because it encompasses many things, right? It includes, right, so many elements of phenomena. So therefore, that universality itself indicates lack of intrinsic reality. Yeah.
근데 대셔다 그래서 러시 주변에 편주 도면서 저거로.
Right.
되면은 찍찍 차벼야 말아. 가와 도만 싫어.
Right.
어찌 거긴 되면 차서로. 차벼야 말아.
Right.
러시 뭐라이도 닦고 잡죠로.
Right. So, if something exists, intrinsically, then it cannot be inclusive of many things. It is just whatever it is, right? Just like when we talk about pillars and vases, right? And pillars do not include the vases, and vases do not, right? Because those are not dependent upon each other, so it would be like that. Whereas when you think in terms of a universal principle of a framework that could apply to many, that itself indicates, right? It involves so many, things. Right? Yeah. One more question from somewhere, and then I have announcements to make. Oh, back at the back.
How could anything exist intrinsically?
Yeah, how could?
Like, how could that even be possible?
Yeah.
Like, so, and then within that, I guess, then what maybe is the best argument that someone has made for that?
That things exist intrinsically,
Yeah,
right?
it
That's
just
what they have to
doesn't-
make, right?
Doesn't make any
Right,
sense.
right. That what I this is good. Tanda gang sunda chairman and rangshin drupa kor yoshin min do wasar wage. Ta yoshin meba sonza and rangshin drupa dungen de jo gera wa gyumjen yaksho karko go res rangshin drupa la wage.
아니,
Ta ngon rangshin drushin yo marwa.
에,
Ta drushin meba shi yours labdi kan la wage.
아니.
Yose go druje yaksho robde karko go res ta yoshin de.
아니, 예세데 대시월다 그러지다 배로 생겨서다 타메 메랑가 추 가르도 나나 고 떼좀 쓰는 거 말아. 코나 비게 숙도 없어 쓰는 거 말아.
No, no.
어디 난 거야?
No. Theoretically and intellectually, right? You're right. How could anybody think that something exists intrinsically? However, because there are many schools who accept, intrinsic reality, what they tell us is, check with not so much our intellectual part, but with our innate perceptions. How do things appear to our perceptions? They appear to our perceptions as sort of fixed entities, isn't it? As if, I can stand myself. I don't need you anymore, right? Just bugger off or something. I don't know, they didn't say that. But so that's why they said things could be, or things are intrinsically exist. The way they appear to us, if we accept that's how things exist, then there should be intrinsic existence, isn't it? Okay, so that's the point, yeah. All right, thank you very much for
디
active.
주마 다 세바 여든 대샤.
So Geshe wants me to remind again that next week we will go back to volume 2 on the perfection of patience. Okay, so we will, sit this for a while and then come back. Okay, I have 2 announcements to make. Number 1, His Most Eminence Late Rinpoche's anniversary is coming up on April 12, Wednesday. So we are going to have the Tsok offering, right? For lack of a better word in English, feast offering or Gana Chakra in Sanskrit at 7:30. And most of you know what Tsok means, the puja. Yeah, so 7:30 on April 12, Wednesday, to observe Late Rinpoche's anniversary. And then for those who have received Yamantaka empowerment, not only received it, you completed Yamantaka standard retreat. Okay? So you could participate in this retreat sort of on Saturday, April 22, 2 to 5. We are going to do what is called self-empowerment or self-initiation, okay, of Yamantaka. So that means, even if you have received the initiation, but you never had a time to do the retreat, you cannot come to this self-initiation because it makes no sense, But if you have received the initiation, you have done the retreat, then you are welcome to participate in this retreat. That's going to be on Saturday, April 22nd, 2 to 5. Okay. Kange londe timnye dinda nyenda namda rabseve chinye dungu jishe seche nije dogan lebamze kanda sebe zura mare mendon dongen yese jozo gunla boje daze yela tuju yangden son joda chedro nyemo leje jangron deze mare meze dongen nyugo chinye chenze radena dene daje saje Yunde lunzo jeze turu gu juda jut. Talu muze jambe yang la du omara bata na Omara bata na di zende hye kera weze ye talu kemo memba rase Pada tenju shunglo toba ye lode Zedo ze lode gyazu uchung pega de gyazang pongwe shudo menba shen tenpa zingla wangdo kisho Kanyen zhugun kyo so wang de page 21 Obeisance to my guru and protector Manjushri, who holds at his heart a scriptural text symbolic of his seeing all things as they are, whose intelligence shines forth as the sun, unclouded by delusions or traces of ignorance, who teaches in 60 ways with the loving compassion of Father for his only Son, all creatures caught in the prison of samsara, confused in the darkness of their ignorance, overwhelmed by their suffering. You whose dragon thunder-like proclamation of Dharma arouses us from the stupor of our delusions and free us from the iron chains of our karma, who wields this sword of wisdom, hewing down suffering wherever sprouts appear, clearing away the darkness of ignorance. You who have been pure from the beginning, who have completed the stages achieving the highest perfection of a bodhisattva, whose princely body is adorned with 112 marks of a Buddha, I bow down to you, Manjushri, Om Arabhazanadi. O compassionate one, with the brilliance of your wisdom, illuminate the darkness enclosing my mind, enlighten my intelligence and wisdom, so that I may gain insight into Buddha's words and the texts that explain them. Page 31. Like the sweet perfume of white lotus, born in the ocean of knowledge, nourishing honeybees, the fortunate being. Your fame pervades all directions. You are proficient and powerful in upholding the precious doctrine. To you, O Lord Santenjin Wangda, respectfully I pray.
Nhất tâm kính lễ Đức Văn Thù Sư Lợi, bậc đại trí Ngài đều phục hai chướng ngại, tự nhật quan lan tỏa khắp mười phương, bậc thực chứng chân nghĩa màu rốt ráo, từ tim Ngài Bát Nhã Kinh thủ hộ nhiệm màu, cõi luân hồi chúng sanh thọ nghiệp báo, bị ngăn che bởi phiền não vô minh, sở hữu 60 pháp âm thù thắng, cùng đại bi Ngài hóa độ chúng sanh, tự từ mẫu chăm lo cho quý tử. Tiếng rồng vang Ngài thức tỉnh hữu tình. Tận diệt muôn vàn khổ đau cùng ách nạn, trường tử Như Lai tối thắng toàn giác. Ngài an trụ nơi thập địa pháp vân, báu thân Ngài trang nghiêm thanh tịnh. 112 tướng hảo Như Lai, đê đầu đảnh lễ Đức Văn Thù Sư Lợi, cúi xin Ngài tận diệt ám chướng vô minh. Con khẩn cầu dưới gót sen bậc đại trí, ban pháp lực diệt phiền não vô minh, được chí sáng con thâm nhập nghĩa màu, pháp vi diệu cùng muôn vàn luận giải, như rượu hương ngọt ngào từ sen trắng, đản xanh nơi trí thù thắng đại dương, hàng thiện căn như ong mật thọ nương, hồng danh Ngài khắp mười phương quảng bá, đấng thiện xảo uy dũng bảo tồn pháp bảo vô giá. Nam mô Lúc Sang Tenzin Quang Đắc, xin cung kính trì niệm.
chen re zi wang ten zin yang zo ye sha be si den ba do ten yu ji ye dong gu ru ra no mang de la wa ni yan da yo